So friends, for today's video, I'm going to be going through some anticipated releases for fantasy for the month of July. There's a lot of books that I think sound really cool for this month, so I'm just going to jump right into it. First, and this probably goes without saying, Secret Project 3 by Brandon Sanderson. It's probably my most anticipated of his secret projects just because it sounds the most interesting. I know a lot of people don't actually want to know anything about the secret projects before they jump into them, so I'm not going to actually get into specifics. But I do think that this one sounds awesome, and I can't wait. It and the fourth one, I think, are the ones I've been the most excited about. Secret Project 1, I really enjoyed. Secret Project 2, I was a little disappointed by. So here's to hoping Secret Project 3 brings the excitement level back up. That should be released right the first of the month, so yay, really excited to be getting that one. But moving on from there, everything else will be listed in order of projected release date. I will have all this information in the description bar down below if you'd like to reference back to it. But on the 11th of July, we have Ebony Gate. And I didn't actually need to see much else about this besides the very, very beginning, the opening of the synopsis. It says Julia V. and Ken Bebble's Ebony Gate is a female John Wick story with dragon magic set in contemporary San Francisco's Chinatown. That sounds awesome. I'll read on though in case you would like to hear more about it. It says Amiko's song belongs to one of the 8 premier magical families of the world, but Amiko never needed any magic because she is the blade of the Suong clan, or was, until she's drenched in blood in the middle of a market in China, surrounded by bodies and the scent of blood and human waste as a lethal perfume. The butcher of Beijing now lives a quiet life in San Francisco, importing antiques. But when a Shinigami, a god of death itself, calls in a family blood debt, Amiko must recover the Ebony Gate that holds back the hungry ghosts of the Yomi underworld, or forfeit her soul as the anchor. What's a retired assassin to do but save the city by the bay from an army of the dead? So I think that sounds awesome. There aren't that many ratings for this one yet because I don't think it's as anticipated or as known. I don't think the marketing has really been broadcasting this book the same way it has some of the other ones that you'll be seeing, but I think it sounds awesome. I also think the cover is really, really cool. After that, we have Dark Water Daughter. This is by the author H.M. Long. I read another book of theirs, and while I didn't absolutely love it, I still thought it was pretty good, and I've been interested in what they would write after that, because the next book they wrote, I believe, was in the same world, and it was kind of a companion story, and this one is, I think, going to be its own series. So it says a storm singer and pirate hunter join forces against a deathless pirate lord in this swashbuckling adventure on the high seas. There's a lot more to it. That, just like the previous one, is really all I needed to hear to think that it sounded cool. And actually, over on my collaborative channel, World Hoppers, this was actually brought up, I believe, by Tori specifically. If you would like to see a video where we go over anticipated releases for the entire rest of the year, it's going to be a little more conversational, and that I'll have linked in case you'd like to see it. But I believe she's the one that brought this up, and I'm like, oh, okay, this sounds cool. But the rest of the synopsis after that says, launching the Winter Sea series full of magic, betrayal, redemption, and fearsome women for readers of Adrienne Young, R.J. Barker, and Naomi Novik. Mary Firth is a storm singer, a woman whose voice can still hurricanes and shatter armadas. Faced with servitude to pirate lord Sylvanus Lur, Mary offers her skills to his arch-rival in exchange for protection and, more importantly, his help sending Lur to a watery grave. But her new ally has a vendetta of his own, and Mary's dreams are dark and full of spectral creatures who inhabit the ancient forests of her homeland and the figureheads of ships. Samuel Rosser is a disgraced naval officer serving aboard the Heart, an infamous privateer commissioned to bring Lur to justice. He will stop at nothing to capture Lur, restore his good name, and reclaim the only thing that stands between himself and madness, a talisman stolen by Mary. Finally, driven into the eternal ice, the limits of their world, Mary and Samuel must choose their loyalties and battle forces older and more powerful than the pirates who would make them slaves. Come sail the Winter Sea for action-packed, high-stakes adventures, rich characterization, and epic plots full of intrigue and betrayal. It reminds me a little bit in its synopsis of The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi, which I thought was really fun. It's not necessarily my favorite of the year or anything, but it was a fun adventure story. And that swashbuckling feeling that Amina had, it would seem the synopsis is indicating that this one might as well. After that, we have Thief, Liar, Lady, and I believe Kristen, from that video I mentioned before, I think she's the one that mentioned this, So the setup for this one, it says, happily ever after is a total scam, but at least this time the princess is the one controlling the grift until her true love arrives and threatens to ruin the whole scheme. Intrigue, magic, and wit abound in this Cinderella fairy tale reimagining, perfect for fans of Heather Walter and Naomi Novik. Kind of interesting that both the last two have been compared to Naomi Novik, and I kind of don't think either of them sound like Naomi Novik. But Naomi Novik also writes very different from book to book, with the exception of Spinning Silver and Uprooted, which have a similar style, even though the stories themselves are very different. But other than that, I'm thinking about Temeraire, and I'm like, it doesn't really sound like Temeraire. Anyway, I don't really think it sounds like Naomi Novik. Curious if you think it does. But I think the idea of a Cinderella retelling that's kind of cheeky, I think that sounds like a lot of fun. That's it for the 11th. Now moving to the 18th, we have the Jasad Heir. This is, I believe, an Orbit release, and I often really like a lot of Orbit releases, so I have high hopes, fingers crossed. And this one is an Egyptian-inspired debut fantasy with a fugitive queen that strikes a deadly bargain with her greatest enemy and finds herself embroiled in a complex game that could resurrect her scorched kingdom or leave it in ashes forever. Soon, she'll have to choose between the life she wants and the one she left behind. The scorched kingdom is rising, and it needs a queen. I think that sounds pretty cool. After that, we have the only other one for the 18th, and that would be Immortal Longings. And this one is by Chloe Gong. I believe this is her adult fantasy debut. It already has a lot of ratings, over 500, and the average rating is still quite high, so promising. It's inspired by Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra. It's a fiery collision of power plays, spilled blood, and romance amidst a set of deadly games. And I've read one of Chloe Gong's books, and I liked it. I didn't love it. I definitely was curious to see what she'd write next, and I'm very curious to see how her adult fantasy is. I do think that there is a strange feeling that comes from authors who are known for their YA books, where when they write adult, I can't tell if it's just what they're accustomed to or if it's marketing and the editing trying to keep their books feeling a little bit on the younger side or parts of their books feeling younger so that it appeals to the readership that author has developed. I'm not sure, but I've seen before where other authors that are in a similar position, known for YA, and they go into adult, that when they do that, there's a tone that's different from a lot of other adult. It almost feels more like new adult. Or the setting will feel really epic and the setting will feel really adult, but the characters will feel really young. And again, don't know if it's the author or if it's the marketing. Not really the marketing. It would be the editing team that would probably be responsible for that. I'm not sure. I am curious to see if this one falls into that same feeling as well. Now moving on to the 25th, we have The Sun and the Void. I've been excited about this one for a long time. I've seen a lot of people excited for this one for a while. It doesn't have the highest average rating from early reviews, but there's not too many, so maybe that will go up as more people read it. But the synopsis says, in a lush world inspired by the history and folklore of South America, a sweeping epic fantasy of colonialism, ancient magic, and two young women's quests for belonging unfolds. Reina is desperate, stuck living on the edges of society. Her only salvation lies in an invitation from her grandmother she's never known. But the journey is dangerous, and prayer can't always avert disaster. Attacked by creatures that stalk the region, Reina is on the verge of death until her grandmother, a dark sorceress, intervenes. Now, dependent on Donya's magic for her life, Reina will do anything to earn and keep her favor, even the bidding of an ancient god who whispers to her at night. And in the end, she'll become something she never imagined. I think we see so few South American fantasy, especially adult South American fantasy. House of Roots and Ruin. This is a young adult story, and it's actually a sequel to what has long been a standalone, House of Salt and Sorrows. This is a fantasy horror story. It was a 12 Dancing Princesses retelling, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it did fantasy horror really well, and this is going to be a sequel, so I'm not going to read the synopsis because it's a sequel, and it might reveal things about the first book, but the first book had to do with a curse. It seemed like all these sisters and the women in this family were dying, and nobody really knew why, and it was thoroughly creepy. I really liked it, so I'm excited to see what this next one is like. After that, we have Bonesmith by Nikki Pau-Preto. This is the author of, I don't know if you can see it, the Crown of Feathers trilogy over there. And I've been really excited about Bonesmith for a long time. It says at the beginning, Gideon the Ninth meets the Game of Thrones White Walkers in this dark young adult fantasy about a disgraced ghost-fighting warrior who must journey into a haunted wasteland to rescue a kidnapped prince. And then last we have The Weaver and the Witch Queen. This is by the same author as Witch's Heart, which I really liked. The author seems to have a lot of knowledge when it comes to Norse mythology, so I'm really, really excited about this one because I really like Witch's Heart, so I'm excited to see what she does with this retelling, or this story. But anyway, that's it for some anticipated July releases. I would love to know what you're anticipating. Are you anticipating any of these? I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, though, and I'll see you all later. Bye.